Interesting question. Should artists release more songs more frequently to earn enough money and to become more popular, especially in the global stage? Won't this sacrifice creativity and quality? And then she proceeded to talk about how it is mentally unhealthy for many of these K-pop boy bands and girl groups to pump contents like crazy. They're being overworked and stuff like that. So she's asking, like, especially for Filipino artists, SB19, is it should should we succumb to that pressure to continuously release more songs? And the answer is yes, and it's all because of social media. Okay, first let me clarify. Pumping contents in lightning speed isn't actually something new. K-pop did not invent that. The Beatles actually came out with 13 albums in the 7 years of their mainstream career as the Beatles. Then there was Michael Jackson. He in the first 3 years of his career, he actually came out with 4 studio albums. Elvis Presley came out with 23 albums in a 21-year career, so that's almost a little over one album per year. So that's nothing new. Pumping content has always been the basis of entertainment. That has always been the main product, basically. So K-pop did not invent that. They did not create that. That is something that has been existing for a while. Now, releases became a little less more frequent when labels came in, and I think it was all about trying to maximize every investment that they make, because they spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for one artist to be debuted and to actually be released, for them to release an album. So the key was to make sure that they would get a return in their investment for every release, and so they would make sure that they will drive that material to the ground. So there's guestings, there's endorsements, there's other contents, there's tours and more tours per album that an artist releases. Per album that an artist releases. So it was, of course, very attractive. It was an attractive proposition to many artists, because it means that they could like work really hard for 2 years and then take another 2 years to rest before they get to record another album. So they get to live their lives, of course. They get to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Now we know that that's not entirely entirely true every time, because TLC was actually in debt at the height of their career. They won like four Grammy awards, I think, and they were like bankrupt. So, but that's another story. But there are artists, for example, like Adele, that waits like an average of 3 years in between releases, or 4 years. Beyonce is another one. I think it's a little bit different when it is a boy band, because I know that One Direction actually came out with one album per year, and Harry Styles, I think he does like 1.5 years in between releases, maybe, or something like that. Um, but then there's like Linkin Park that waited from there's an average of like 3 to 4 years in between their releases. So that it became less frequent, and as I've said, I think it was driven by the need for the label to recuperate their investments fast. So, and of course, for every investment that they make. Now, while that was happening in the US, something else was happening in Japan. The US is the biggest music market, but Japan is the second biggest music market. Japan was actually concentrating on fan interaction, because instead of creating artists, they started creating brands. So for example, AKB48, they don't have fixed members, because as members grow older, they actually graduate. But then to maximize that name, to maximize the brand, they would create different ways to earn revenue from their fans. So you have, aside from the albums that they release, they would have concerts, of course. They would have fan events like high touch and fan signing events. I think if you want to like take a picture, that's another, you have to pay extra for that. And then there are other more intimate, smaller activities that you can do with the members. So, and then there's a lot of members. So it's not like you're overworking. Like, for example, you can conduct many fan signs. You can do many fan signs simultaneously in different parts of Japan. So the since the internet at that time wasn't so fast, and then phones weren't as popular or weren't as affordable, the fan interaction meant actual physical presence of the fans. So they would do annual voting. They have like the member of the year, and whoever wins, it would actually, that member would become the center for the next year. And so if you're a fan of a certain member, you actually have to go to a place physically and to vote, and I think you need to pay to vote. So they really were juicing out every opportunity that they could get from the fans. They really wanted to make the fans spend. So what Korea did was actually to fuse the glamour of the West and fan interaction of Japan, and they combined that. So they would engage fans the way you would engage a relationship. You know, there's constant presence. You always have to be there. You try to not bore them by providing them different activities. That's why they come out with albums, mini albums, live performances, specials. They go to variety shows, all because they want to stay in contact with the fans. It's just like nurturing like a romantic relationship or a friendship, right? You need to be there for the person that you're having a relationship with. This time it is artists and fans, and so to keep that relationship going, they have to make sure that there's constant presence in each other's lives, basically. Now, when phones became affordable, internet became faster, and social media became a hit, it created a monster. It changed the way fans behaved. It changed the expectations of fans, and it changed the habits of fans and how they consume content, because suddenly everybody had the entire world on their hand. That's why TikTok is so popular, because you have 1 minute of videos and there's millions of them on your hand at your disposal, and you have the absolute power to say no to any content that you want. You just swipe up if it bores you, and you can stay if it doesn't bore you, if you like it. So it trained people to expect more, and it trained people to not chase, but to actually just wait for contents to come to them, because that's how it is. Like, everything is just waiting for you on your phone. So it changed the habits of people, as I've said, the way that you consume content. It changed your way of thinking. It changed your expectations, because you feel like everything is dispensable now. If you're not present, if you're not here and now, there are a million other artists or a million other content creators that are waiting for my attention. So a song suddenly isn't enough. Suddenly an artist cannot and should not limit themselves to just songs, because we started seeing artists in a more dynamic level. We started seeing them as people as well as influencers, not just as singers or as musicians, and all because of internet and your cell phone. I can see a celebrity right now walking by in front of my house, and I can just take out my phone, take a video, post it on TikTok, and all of a sudden it's broadcasted to everybody. As opposed to, I'm dating myself, but back in the day when we were younger, if I want to see a performance of my favorite artist, I'm gonna have to wait for them to come to my country, and then I can pay for the concert, or I can just search for them on TV and see if they're guesting on any show that I watch. Now, it's just or if there's a reporter that takes a picture of them, they will have to go to a publication or a magazine or a newspaper, and then an editor has to take a look at that, go to press, print it, and then I'll have it in a day or two or maybe a week. But nowadays, it's instant. Anybody sees anybody, take a video, post it on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or whatever, and everybody will have access to that. And so instead of me just seeing them as artists, I see them as people as well. I notice the way that they dress. I notice who the people that they're with. It just gave people access to artists in more ways than one. Okay, so as it became so, and in that same level as well, because there are more content creators. Artists need to compete with those as well. Aside from competing with other musicians, they are also competing with filmmakers, comedians, all of those stuff. And so they need to add layers to the art that they are making. It used to be just songs. And then it expanded to music videos. Now it's expanding to a lot more other genres and other activities. Now you need to create a narrative, you need to think of a concept. Otherwise, if you don't do that, there are millions of other artists that would be more than willing and are actually doing it, and we have access to that. Okay, so a song is not enough. And I would like to quote Spotify CEO Daniel Ek. So he said, you can't record music once every 3 to 4 years and think that's going to be enough. The artists today that are making it realize that it's about creating continuous engagement with their fans. It's about putting the work in, about the storytelling around the album, and about keeping a continuous dialogue with your fans. So remember, it is because you want it. Fans want it nowadays. I'm not saying everybody does, but that is where it is going, and especially the younger generation. That's what they're looking for. And so that's what musicians need to compete with, and that they need to provide you. Artists need to do the grind anymore. They need to compete with everybody else, not just with other musicians of the same genre. They need to compete with all other musicians, and they need to compete with all other artists and all other content creators. Now, and that's spilling over not just in their artistic lives, but in their personal lives as well. So the answer to your question is no, they do not have to. But if they want better results in terms of sales, in terms of expansion of their market, then yes, they will have to, because that's what the market is looking for. That's how the market is behaving. And so that's what they need to provide. At the end of the day, music is also marketing. It's also a business. So now, what can you do as a fan if you don't want to subject your favorite artist into something like that? What can you do? Support in every way that you can. And if you can afford it, support them financially by actually paying for your streaming instead of just doing the free one, buying their album, buying their merch, going to their shows, going to their concerts. If you can create contents around them and about them, do that. And create contents that would talk about the quality of their music instead of talking about their fashion or whatever, because at the end of the day they are musicians. That's what you want them to be known for, and I'm sure that's what they want to be known for as well. Join communities that will support them. Build communities that will provide support for them. So it's all about being able to support them on all the levels that they need you to support them financially, of course, supporting their music, being loud about them, talking about them in social media. And most important of all, live their influence, live their message. If they're talking about peace, if they're talking about loving yourself, if they're talking about respect towards their parents, if they're talking about driving towards your dream and fighting for your dream, then do that, because the best tribute that you can give to them is to actually live the message of their music. Hope that helps.